I'm Andrew Oliver. This is my wife Emma. We farm at Western Slade Farm on the Gower, near Swansea. We've got 4 children, 3 boys, William, Jack and James, and a little girl, Lizzie. And I was brought up here from a child. All I ever really wanted to do was help my dad on the farm and do things linked to the farm. The farm was everything. I had an older brother working on the farm as well. He didn't die of cancer, but he had cancer of the esophagus. He had a lump the size of an orange behind his chest. And my brother was a very quiet person. He never talked to anybody. He never told anybody how he was feeling, how things were, even me. And we were sort of not just brothers, we were best buddies as well. He had an operation, which was all successful, but he had a thing called adult respiratory distress syndrome after the operation, which meant he couldn't oxygenate his blood. And he was on machines for about a fortnight, and then he passed away at 39. Well, that left a big dent in my life. I suppose I didn't give myself a chance to worry about it and feel let down. It was disappointment because I had to keep my father going because he didn't want to know anything about the farm. And I said, look, you've got to think what would Colin, my brother, want to do, and that is carry on. So I carried on. I had a relationship breakdown, which was my own doing. And I think that was when I began to have problems with my thoughts because I stopped talking to anybody. In fact, I stopped talking to everybody. And that went for a while and I got slightly better. I was reasonably good when I met Emma. But shortly after, about 2 years after we were married and we had a young child, William, my eldest, I just didn't want to know anything. And I'm a very self-motivated person. Being on a farm on your own, you have to motivate yourself, and what needs to be done, you go and do. But I didn't want to know a thing, did I, Emma? I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to go out to the farm. I did go through stages where I didn't even want to live. And looking back now, you think, Jesus, was it that bad? And it was grim. But one of the main influences in me really going downhill was our landlady, who lived at the end of the road, was part of the family almost. We looked after her as though she was family. In her will, there was a sentence saying we were to be allowed to purchase the farm at probate value. Well, my father had farmed here for 50 years as a tenant. We couldn't afford to buy it, but we couldn't afford not to. So we went to the bank. I got a massive loan. So all I was doing was paying interest and getting nowhere, going backwards. I knew I wasn't getting anywhere, but if I had to sell something, I would. But in the end, we did have a barn conversion that my uncle had left me, and we managed to get away. I'm not in the hands of the bank, and that's a huge weight off my shoulders even now.
And it's only been a couple of years, isn't it, that we've been in that position?
Yeah, it's not a big farm. It's 160 acres, 40 acres of which is cliff land. But just to keep machinery relatively up to date and try and keep things, when you're working on your own, you want a bit of reliability. It's a huge amount of money needed, which we're not necessarily making. But I'm not blaming the bank for my depression, but they were a big influencer in making it worse.
You were going through the stages of couldn't find you, and where we live, it's a worrying thing when you can't find someone who's that depressed because there's cliffs. You just have to walk to the bottom of the farm, and my worry was he'd gone that way, or I'd find him in the shed.
I just wanted so much peace that everything might go away.
But you couldn't even find peace in your head. I remember you saying that. You wanted peace, but it was all still in there, even if he was on his own.
But the doctors weren't very good at listening. I would say the main people that got me onto the lithium was when I went to the medical centre in Swansea as opposed to my doctors. The doctors wanted to just, try another medication. I tried loads of them. I had one and I was having the most weird dreams you could imagine. Yeah. Terrible dreams, murderous type dreams. And then you think of this drug's supposed to make me feel better. But only 2 weeks, and I thought, forget that, don't bother, I won't have anything.
But then I think, I don't mean to sound like sexist, but I think it's a man thing then to be like, I'm not going back, I've tried that now, it didn't work, I'm not going back to the doctors to ask for another. So I'd be like, right, come on. And I did take him myself, and I spoke for you, didn't I? You didn't even want to speak to the doctor.
No, it was a stage where I didn't want to see or speak to anybody, no matter who they were.
Through the day you'd be like that, and then most nights then get 6-7 o'clock, go, I think I might go and plough the field now. I think, he's feeling all right now.
It was a horrible feeling in the mornings. As the day went by,
you'd be all right before you get out of bed. As soon as you got up out of bed, it would start again. I'd find him in the chair just like this. And I talked to him, he's like, he wouldn't answer, he'd be like this. And his dad used to call out every morning for a cup of tea, and he'd hide. I had to lie to his dad and say he's out on the farm and Andrew would be hiding upstairs.
Well, I didn't want my father to know, is the truth of it, because I didn't want to worry him by anything else. But he
realised.
My mother especially only lived up the green and about a mile away. She knew something was wrong just by the way I talked to her, and you could try and bluff it as much as you like, and she knew.
Yeah.
But they didn't know how to react, did they?
No.
They didn't know what to do about it.
They'd be like, come on, you'll be all right, you know, like you'll be okay. And I think that's the older generation, that's just how they were brought up. But yeah, in the night then, he'd go and do all his work till 10, 11 o'clock, and I'd think, right, you'll be all right tomorrow. And then go to bed, wake up, be like, all right, and you'll be okay, out of bed, start again. And it was tough because obviously, you know, with him being older than me as well, that was quite a while ago. I was that much younger, and I just obviously not long had my first child. I was, you know, struggling with that, and in a way, I felt I was on my own with my child because Andrew couldn't face it. He could not face. You couldn't look at me or William or anybody.
I honestly think I had some form of depression of a sort when I first left the farm when I was 23 to go to college, because I remember I was
Just
thinking about it.
away.
Yeah, I wanted to get in the car, which is what I did. Drive, got us in all ones, and I didn't. And this is a horrible thing.
You didn't even ring.
I didn't even message my parents. I was 23. I was a man, but it's still uncalled for. I didn't message them for 6 months. They didn't know where I was. They knew where I was. I presume they thought it was okay, but no contact at all, nothing at all. And I felt guilty for that afterwards, and I felt quite guilty about the fact that I just pretty much up and went and left my brother to do so much work that he did, which would have been shared between us. But so I think it goes back a long way, and even before I realised it, and it was always niggling in the background perhaps, and just my brother's death didn't seem to trigger anything off. But like I said, I didn't have a chance to think about it because I kept working the farm. I came back here and worked the farm, and I was permanently trying to get my father to stick with it. And he did come round. I went for 5 years. I couldn't mention my brother's name to my dad. And as parents, they never got over it because their youngest, child died, and he was 39, which is there's people worse off than him, but it's pretty grim. I haven't got the answers. I don't know what it's all about. I don't even know what the big issues are. But I do know if I stopped taking my medication, even if I went down off it gently, I still think I would end up in
I think it's something you're going to have to stick with. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I don't think they were keen to put me on lithium because it's not a nice drug anyway. No. But it works for me, and I know other people who it worked for, and I mentioned that to the doctors that I had friends who were on it. And would it be worth giving that a try? And
yeah, we asked for the lithium, didn't we? Yeah.
I was still on a downer, wasn't I? But perhaps I had a little bit of hope, did I?
I think it did make you feel like there might have been a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, as you started to pick up, you were a bit more... And he went to nothing in weight. He went...
I lost about two or 3 stone.
More than that, you were tiny.
But that was because I didn't want to eat either.
Yeah,
and when you're feeling that down, it's a vicious circle. You might eat well, you get a bit depressed, you feel down, you stop eating so well, you stop eating completely. I wouldn't eat hardly anything.
And then I'd get frustrated, even though I knew he was struggling, I'd get frustrated then because obviously making the meals and sorting the baby and I'd be like, oh, I've done that for him and he doesn't want that and he's throwing it back in my face and so that's where...
I will say, you did have a lot to put up with, but none of it was done obviously on purpose and perhaps you have to go through them things to appreciate the better side of life, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that as you slowly get better or you feel better, then you can mend as quick as you deteriorate, in my eyes.
Yeah.
I wasn't long into it, and I was all right, wasn't I?
And I think...
the other thing, which was a huge hurdle, in the beginning, you wouldn't tell anybody you're on tablets. You don't tell anybody you're on antidepressants. No way, you don't tell anybody.
But I don't care now.
I don't care. I don't care. In fact, I would almost broadcast it because it's done the job for me.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a drug that I don't want to be on, but it's working. When I haven't been depressed, I'm always quite a motivated, or very motivated actually, and always a very happy person, don't I, inside. It doesn't take a lot to make me happy, does it? Even now. I like where I live. I like doing what I do. I don't make much money out of it. I don't make hardly any money out of it, but that's what makes me happy, and to see my children happy. I don't want for any more. And my wife happy, yeah. Oh. And the other thing that used to get me down as well, but this is probably quite important, especially to a lot of other farmers, I always wanted to get to the stage where I could go in, say tonight, and everything, not everything that needed to be done, but everything I wanted to do is done on the farm. And it's the stupidest aim in my whole life, I think, because it will never happen. But it's extremely difficult to do that, because I think we're tuned into wanting to do everything in one go. I was, anyway.
What's really important is, if you've noticed in his story, even though he wanted to stop talking to everyone, if we hadn't have spoken to that friend, and it is a lot about speaking to other people about it, we wouldn't have known about lithium, we wouldn't have asked about lithium, and he wouldn't be on it now, and I don't know where he'd be if he hadn't have gone on it. So I think that's where it shows how important it is to talk to other people. You get a different perspective, I think.
Because I went to a stage where I didn't even want Emma here, and I asked her to leave, and my young boy. And at that time, it's not supposed to sound drastic, but it was going to be one less problem for me to worry about. And that's cruel, really. But when Emma was away for a week, my little boy was just starting to talk. I remember sitting in the kitchen and Emma was saying, oh, he's just said such and such a word, I can't remember what word. And even then I didn't want to know. But when she came back and we started getting somewhere with medication, then I think it probably has strengthened our relationship, really. I feel guilty about what I did, but all I will say is that it wasn't really me. And there was a number of things, I think, before I met Emma that I did that I've got guilt about. Well, I've got a son who lives in Newbury who's 18 now, and I split up with his mother the week after he was born. And that was my own doing. I had an affair, and I thought things were going to be so much better, and it was disastrous. But there's not a day goes by when I don't think, that was horrible, and that's not how I wanted to be remembered. And I never saw much of him as a child. I see him now.
Lucky we've got quite a strong relationship.
Yeah, he's good now. It's fine. But
yeah.
I don't like to think back to that stage too much, because I just think that I was, I'm not making excuses at all, but it was grim, and that something that I'm not very proud of. I'm not proud of when I asked her to leave and when I wanted to go my own route, but I have a few regrets about all the nasty sides of when I was unwell, but I don't see that as an excuse.
But you couldn't help it, really.
No, I know, but it's not something I'm proud of.
No.
I know people do worse things, but if I'm not careful, I can churn over them things too much, because nothing I can do about it. What's done is done. I often say that to Emma. Don't bother thinking about what happened yesterday, because you could do something about what happens tomorrow, but you can't do anything about what happened yesterday. But it's easy to say, not quite so easy to see that through.
I think, when I really think about it, I don't know if you agree, it was a lot to go through what you went through, because obviously the other person's going through some of it as well, obviously not as bad, but you've got that worry, constant worry all the time. Like I forgot to say, when I was working in the school, you have an hour for lunch, it's only down the road, I'd race back here in my hour to make sure he was still here, because I'd worry that much. And I think when you've got that constantly, and then it all died down and you have time to think, and I think that's when it hit me, the anxiety started. And I didn't know what it was for a long time, did I? I was getting dizzy a lot. I couldn't carry, and by this time we had Jack, our second boy. I couldn't carry him down the stairs as a baby. I thought I'd fall down the stairs. I couldn't bath him on my own. I thought he'd slip out my arm in the water and drown. I couldn't drive far. I'd drive locally, that was it. I wouldn't go shopping. And the doctor, they thought I had vertigo. They thought, then we went to a private consultation, didn't we? And they said the same, I think. They were trying all these different things with moving my head, thinking it was two little things behind your ear, imbalance. And then one day I was sat in the doctor's waiting room with Jack in his carry seat. And I said to the nurse, the receptionist, I need to see the doctor now. I'm going to faint. That was the main, I was always feeling faint. I said, I'm going to faint, I'm going to be sick. And she said, right, put your head down like that and I'll get the doctor now. I couldn't even carry Jack. The doctor had to carry Jack in for me. He wired me all up. You're having a panic attack. I was like, what? I was one of those people that really, a panic attack, I was like, it's a cop-out kind of thing. He's like, no. He goes, how often is this happening? I'm like, all day. And he said 1 in 10 people have, was it 1 in 10? I think it was more than that, have an anxiety disorder, which is where you can have between 5 and 10 panic attacks a day. I wouldn't look at the stars at night. I can laugh about it now, but I wouldn't look at the stars because I'd convinced myself that one was moving and it was an asteroid in my head. Come in, kill us all. We're all going to be dead because there's an asteroid. Do you remember I used to say, come on, look, it's moving?
Or if a plane went over.
Oh my God, I'd stand in the doorway like this because they used to come over right above the house, the jets and the Hercules and things like
planes,
that.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. It's quite lonely because I don't think you quite understood it for a while.
No, I didn't believe it, if I'm honest, in the beginning.
No. And you're embarrassed then when the doctor says to you it's anxiety. You think, oh, is that all? Like I thought at one point I was dizzy because I had a brain tumour. I thought that the palpitations I was going to have a heart attack. I didn't think, but now you can piece it all together and you know what it is. And they tried a few different medications with me. I was lucky, my doctor, it was the same doctor throughout, and he knew if I was having a bad time, or he'd say to me, oh, you seem better in yourself. He knew me, and that was really good. And he'd say, no, I think you're on you're pretty level at the minute, you're doing okay. But yeah, I think I went through 3 lots of medication before I got to the one I'm on now. And I think I've been on it about 8 years. And I've thought about weaning off them, but the same as Andrew, I mean, it's peaceful now. Seems to be a popular word with this, isn't it? But it's peaceful. There's not words in there, you know. I went missing, didn't I? I took all, I didn't actually physically take it, but I took it with me, all the medication in the house. Andrew was in the house with the kids and I walked off. Went down the cliff, down to the bottom, and I hid. And I guessed he'd be looking, or he'd get other people to help because obviously the kids were here. The police were called, and I just didn't want to see anyone. I was down there, and then the police came down, found me. The ambulance was here, and I've got to say, if it wasn't for that ambulance worker who came and took me away from everybody up here and talked to me on my own, and he said, I've been there, do you need my help? And I just said yes. Went to hospital then, didn't we? And then they sent me to the mental health hospital, but they let me go. They didn't keep me in.
No, that wasn't a nice place.
No.
A horrible place, in fact.
That was my worst, wasn't it, I think? And that was about just after my grandfather died, about 3 years ago. But yeah, we've got past it all, so when something like that happens, you do realise you've got more support with people you didn't think you did in your network, and I think you do feel better then and you talk a bit more. I just remembered that I've got 4 little people relying on me. A farmer relying on me a little bit sometimes when he's hungry, and just getting yourself out of that negative space in your head. And I think having someone else who's been through it and you can talk to them, that's a big help.
this sounds as though I don't listen to Emma, I don't believe in Emma, but when the doctor confirmed what it was, I said, oh, right, okay, then it must be then. Right, okay, right. Then we'll move forward now and try and do something
You
about it.
couldn't work out why I'd still drive to Nanny's.
Yeah, you should do certain things. I think, if you can do
You
that,
gotta
why
go see
can't I go the
Nanny.
other?
Yeah.
And I was
It's
quite...
a safe place though, isn't it? Going to see like family.
I was quite inconsiderate, I suppose, and I was quite... because I didn't necessarily believe it, and thought it was an excuse, it was just a hindrance, and I just, oh God, here we go again, she won't do this, or she don't want to do that. But when I understood a bit more about it, and then I read a bit of information after the doctor had confirmed it, then I probably started to believe it and was probably more supportive. But until then, I wasn't very supportive, was I?
No.
And
that was tough because I felt like I'd supported him.
But I wasn't really fully aware of the things leading up to that point. And then she was found by the police officer, and I knew that the paramedic was very, very helpful to her.
But I think being from a small community as well, I get more worried than of being embarrassed about these things because everybody gets wind of anything you do. With the anxiety this is, you go through the whole, oh, everyone's talking about me. I go in the shop, everyone's looking at me. But then you appreciate the ones that come up to you and say, do you know what, Em, I hope you're okay. And if you need anything.
One of my wife's biggest failings is worrying about what other people think, because you can't do anything about it. And
No.
the people who think negative, well, tough luck, I don't care less. Until they say it to my face, and even then I still have a conversation to correct them, as it were. But you can spend your whole life worrying about other people, and they don't worry about you, so
no.
There's no point.
Yeah, I just think it passed and brings us to here, I suppose, isn't it?
Mm.
And, you know, your responsibilities take back over everything then. Back to next day, breakfast for the kids. If there was school, I can't remember. You know, you get back into that then and it soon passes. And like now, it's a few years ago now, so you think it will never end. And I suppose it doesn't end or go away, but you manage it instead.
Yeah,
And
that's the word.
you manage it, yeah. And then I suppose we try and help each other manage each other. But I think we've been plain sailing for a while now, haven't we? Like we said, peaceful. And like you always say, we've got our little family.
Well, it's a nice,
that's what's important.
it's a lovely place to live once you eliminate some of your worries and your problems and your debt. Debt has played a huge part in my problem. I don't care what anybody says. And it wasn't the fact of when I was going to pay it back, it was how are we going to pay it back? How are we going to manage this time next year?
If you're in that place, talk to somebody, and it's so easy to say that to someone, but it's just really difficult for them to get it out. Or like even if you see someone who's being like that, you go and talk to someone else. I know when you get married or when you're together, you have that network between you, but everyone's got their own network from before you met or whatever, or your best friend, your auntie, your uncle, your nan, you know, a parent. You've got somebody, a doctor, you know, if you've got to go to your doctor, or I don't know if I'm allowed to mention it, a charity like DPJ. Obviously, we didn't know, it wasn't around then, but I've become like a regional champion for them. And because of our experience, when they asked me to, I thought, gee, that's exactly what we were going through. And if we can help just one person who was in the same or is in the same boat as we were, then I think that's our job done. Whatever anyone thinks of us,